Thanks. Thank you, Sierra. My name is Dawn Gibbons McWayne. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the program director for the Adult Protective Services Workforce Innovation Program. So I work together with Sierra, who you've already met. And then we also have a few other members of our team, Callie and Megan, who are also supporting today's workshop. So welcome to today's Leaders Institute workshop. We're really excited to have you all here. If you have the ability to, please turn your cameras on. It really helps with engagement to be able to see your faces. So if this is your first Leaders Institute workshop, I want to make sure that you know the goal of Leaders Institute is to support APS and adult services leaders and to enhance your capacity to drive program improvements, both in your county and when the topic makes sense to do so, also to be able to work collectively statewide in order to drive those program improvements. And we do this through training workshops and also through the connections to the presenter and helping to support connections with each other. The topic for today is leading through uncertain and challenging times. It's a very timely topic informed by our advisory committee. This one ranked really, really high, which is why we're delivering it first. Our presenter today is Jennifer Bransford-Koons, and I'll share just a little bit more about Jennifer in a moment. In terms of the agenda, Jennifer is our presenter, so we'll be presenting the main content, and then we'll have time for some Q&A. We'll have an opportunity for breakout groups today, and then as Sierra mentioned, we'll be doing evaluation at the end. We'll be asking for your live feedback, and then we'll also have a link to the electronic survey. The evaluation is really important to us. We really do listen to your feedback and we make adjustments where we need to as we move forward. And then we also, when you tell us good things that are working, we make sure like, okay, those are the things to keep doing that. We want to make sure that this is meaningful and a good use of your time. So before I turn things over to Jennifer, we've got a couple of polling questions. We want to get a sense of who's here and what's your role, what's your experience level. So Callie or Sierra, can you launch the poll, please? So there are three polling questions. We have three separate polling questions. One is, what is your role? The second is, how long have you been in your current leadership role? And then the third, how challenging is it to be a leader right now? With one being super easy, not difficult at all, smooth sailing. And five is, it's feeling very challenging to be a leader right now. So please take a moment. And this is anonymous, so we don't know who's saying what. We're just trying to get a sense of, as a group, how are folks feeling right now about being a leader and kind of what's the experience level and what's your role within your program? Seeing the numbers kind of shift as more people answer. How are we doing in terms of responses, Sierra? Do we have most people or do we need to leave it for another moment?
It looks like we have 34 out of 37.
Okay, great. All right. So just a few more seconds. If you're one of the remaining three, get your answer in and we're gonna get ready to close it. All right. So it looks like, are you able to share the results, Sierra? All right. So about half of the group is comprised of managers and then about a quarter supervisors, 12% directors, and another 12% other. How long have you been in your current leadership role? The majority, 0 to 2 years, 41%, and then another almost quarter, 2 to 4 years. So we've got really the majority, 4 years or less, and then 3%, 6 to 10, and then got 15%, 10 plus years. And how challenging is it right now? Most people coming in at a 3. and then 26% at 4 and 12% at 5. So a fair number of folks feeling like it is feeling pretty challenging to be a leader right now. Okay, good. Thank you. That's really helpful. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our presenter for today, Jennifer Bransford-Koons, who's the Director for Aging and Independent Services and is the Public Administrator, Public Guardian for the County of San Diego's Health and Human Service Agency. And I also have a personal connection with Jennifer. It's so exciting for me to have you here today. I've really been looking forward to this. Jennifer was my supervisor when I was a line worker with San Diego County APS. Jennifer was my supervisor. And then when I was a supervisor, Jennifer was my manager. And Jennifer really is one of the best. And so I'm so excited to have you here today and also for myself and others to hear about leadership from you. So take it away, Jennifer.
Thank you, Dawn. You were one of the best supervisors and line workers. So there you go, right back at you. So good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'll just admit right from the beginning, it's harder for me to do a presentation on Zoom because I love being in person and getting feedback from the room. So if there's feedback and questions, please place them in chat and we'll be able to answer them at some point during this morning. So I am excited. What a breadth of different leaders that we have on the presentation today. From very new, I was gonna say very young, but that's not right. Very new to more veteran, just like me. So with that, I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself so that you can kind of understand why this leading through difficult times is really, really important to me. So next slide. So I've actually worked for the County of San Diego for 38 years. So very long time, 38 years this month. I started as a student worker and had the opportunity to meet my husband, who you see in this picture here, when I was a student worker working for the county. So very long time ago. When I became a social worker, I started out working with people experiencing homelessness and then quickly transitioned to working as an in-home supportive services social worker. And so I did in-home supportive services for a couple of years. And I got the opportunity to move to adult protective services. And I didn't really understand at the time what adult protective services really entailed. This was before the law changed in '99, so might be before some of you were born when I started as an APS social worker, but it was my dream. I loved it. I absolutely loved working for adult protective services. It was fast-paced, kept my interest. It was something that every day when I came to work, I didn't know what I'd be doing. Got opportunity to work with people who really, really needed help and to problem solve and to be of service to the clients. And it just really gelled with all of my strengths. So I was an APS investigator for several years and watched how the program changed when the laws changed in 1999, how it expanded, the regulations changed. Our program grew exponentially, working 24-hour, on that 24-hour clock during this period of time. So it was an exciting time, very challenging, and I just adored doing it. So I got the opportunity then to promote within adult protective services as what we call in San Diego a senior worker, and then a supervisor, and then finally the manager. We had one manager in APS at the time. Now our mighty team has 5 managers, so it's really grown since I left, but I think, or 4 managers. So then it's really grown as a program since I even left the program. So I was the manager for many years, probably spent, more than a decade, maybe like 12 years, 13 years in adult protective services. And then got an opportunity to do different types of leadership within our county. So I oversaw child welfare services, our self-sufficiency programs, so the Medi-Cal, CalFresh, CalWorks, and our public health nurses in a portion of our county. So that was a whole different ball of wax, learning how to be a leader in programs that I didn't know very well compared to adult protective services. And that really challenged challenged me as a leader to figure out how do I become an expert in my role as a leader, overseeing people who I wasn't an expert in their job. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I got an opportunity to come back to our aging programs here in San Diego County as the assistant director for aging and independent services. And once again, I got an opportunity to jump back in with our operations here in home supportive services, adult protective services, and our Older Americans Act programs, and really enjoyed being back here for a couple of years. But then COVID hit. I transferred to another job, and after 2 months in that other job, COVID hit. And I got the opportunity to be the director over testing and vaccine operations. So talk about difficult times, not knowing anything of what you're doing, not having any experience with, just like everybody else in the world, with testing and vaccine for this new disease, and overseeing multiple testing and vaccination sites, and really making sure that everybody had access, equitable access to testing and vaccine here in San Diego County. And so after that, I was able to transition to being over our Office of Equitable Communities, which allowed me to really get deep in with community and understand community needs. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I had the great opportunity to come back to AIS, which is what I feel like is my home, working with older adults and people with disabilities and supporting our teams here. It just makes me so happy. So that's my career in a nutshell. So I've had a lot of breadth of experience, a lot of time in the county to see a lot of change and a lot of growth for our counties. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I think that knowing yourself is really important. And so hopefully you heard a little bit in my career journey about how I bring my strengths to the table. So I am somebody that is adaptable and flexible to situations. I believe in seeing people as individuals. I like to develop people and work with teams to help people become who they want to be in their career. I like to make sure that things are arranged in a certain way so that we have the most efficient services possible, and to make sure that people are in the right seat on the bus. And I enjoy challenges and problem solving. And so all of that goes into what my leadership style is. But the most important thing to me is these people that are on the screen, which is my husband, my son, my niece, who lives with her single mom, but is a very important part of my life. We are, we're just a very close, tight-knit family. And that's why I come to work every single day and try to make our county the best place it can possibly be to live. So next slide. Oh, wait, next. Are we doing the word cloud now, or is that after this one? I can't remember. Sorry.
That's all right. Whenever you'd like, Jennifer.
Okay, we can do it after this slide. So this particular, I want to talk just briefly about what we're going through right now. We're going through some not only difficult financial times, but difficult times just in general in our communities. Lots of angst, lots of uncertainty, but we've been here before. I remember back as the manager of Adult Protective Services in 2008, 2009. And it was a very difficult situation to be leading teams when you're not certain what the team is going to look like at the end of the year. Is it going to be reduced? Is it going to be different, a different composition of classifications? How are we going to get the work done when the work isn't getting any smaller? It's just getting more challenging. And so in 2008, 2009, we went through this, and I was reading a newsletter recently, popped up in my old archives from 2004 that actually brought that up. And I remember in the 1990s, we've gone through these difficult financial times. And so what I would just say to you is we're going to get through all of this. We just have to hold on. It comes in waves. Things go up, they go down. There's good times, there's bad times, and we just have to prepare ourselves so that when the good times come again, we're all ready to hit that gas and be prepared and not left on our back foot, and not ready to be, extra innovative and all the things that will come once we have better financial times. So just holding on to that and remembering that this is not unprecedented. We have gone through these times before, and we will get through this. It just takes us working together to get to the other side. So with that, we're going to do I want you guys to do a little bit of thinking for us. So you'll see in the chat, I think there's going to be a link to this menti.com. If you can go there. We want you to think a little bit about a supervisor who helped you navigate navigate change or hard times. So in just one or two words, what trait or value of theirs stood out to you at the time? Compassion, hope, caring, innovative, good, yeah. Calm, transparency, understanding, invested, encouragement. Yeah. Lots about seeing you as a person, no judgment, positivity. These are some great words. Patience, reliable, yeah. Empathy. So hopefully as we go through today, and you're thinking about the leader that brought these traits forward, you'll really start to think about how you, as a leader, can be the one that somebody is thinking about if they're ever asked this question. And I think leadership is a lot about being supportive and caring. And so as we start to talk a little bit further and deeper about your role, just kind of keep this in mind so you can think about that really great leader that brought you to this place of thinking about them in this way. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to put in their word. And I think we can go to the next slide. So what is the role of a leader, right? We're all on this call a leader in some way, shape, or form. I always like to think of my job as being two distinct things. One is being a leader, and one is being a manager. And so a leader, to me, I've had great leaders, I've had great managers, and I've had a combo of the two. For me, a great leader is somebody who is looking to the future. They can succeed when they're cutting through all the differences, personalities, celebrating, have a vision. They're the people that you're looking for the future and to provide guidance on a higher level. A manager is somebody whose particular talents really focus in on performance. So how do we make sure that the job gets done? Both sides are equally important, right? We have to get the job done. But if we're just focusing on that and not providing that vision or seeing where we're headed in the future, it's really hard to come in and do your day-to-day. You really want to be somebody that can see that bigger picture and provides clarity as to where we're going in the future. So that to me is the difference between a leader and a manager. And hopefully you're able to combine both to be able to be successful with your staff. And I think if you think back to some of the people you were thinking about and putting the words in on the word cloud, they probably were a little bit of both, right? They probably made sure you got the job done, but they also were caring and compassionate and could see the future and could see your future. What we know is that the relationship between somebody's direct supervisor and the employee, they're the most critical in employee engagement. So to be engaged in your job means that you are somebody that is going to not only do what's required of you, but to look for innovative ways, to look for efficient ways, to be creative, and to love to come into work every single day, to be able to have the opportunity to do what they do best. So, and that means lower staff turnover, which is great because you guys aren't having to train every single day then, hopefully, if you have low staff turnover. Our clients are more satisfied with the service that we're providing, and people are more productive, which in difficult times, we need people to be very, very productive because we don't have as many people as maybe we once did. Okay, next slide. So to do that, as a leader, you need to be aware of yourself. You need to know what you're good at. Other people. So that drive other people really, really crazy. So know what you're good at, know yourself, and that will help you become a successful leader, is really having that self-awareness and being okay with it while adjusting to those that you're serving as their leader. Okay, next slide. So when we talk about knowing yourself, one of the things that's really, really important is knowing about having a sense of belonging. So Brene Brown, I think probably everybody's heard of Brene Brown. When they looked into and they conducted studies about belonging, because we should all feel like we belong where we are. That means bringing your authentic self. That means that self-awareness. All of that is encompassing in that feeling of belonging. And it doesn't require, when we feel like we belong, it doesn't require us to change who we are at our core. I think a lot of times, and this is very important when you're working with your staff, is that you need to understand who they are and create an environment where they feel like they belong, regardless of how, what special gifts they bring to the job. It's really, really important that they feel like they belong. Fitting in is the opposite of belonging. So when you strive to fit in, you're not being your authentic self and you're not bringing your best to work. You're not being who you're meant to be, and neither are your staff. So creating environments, especially in difficult times where people don't have to hide who they are, is a key component to being able to move forward when things are difficult. So that's just a little reminder to you of how important this is when things are difficult. Next slide. So one of the other things that was really important to me throughout my my leadership journey, and it is a journey, there is no perfect leader out there. I mean, my team can tell you I make mistakes every single day. I screw up, and I hope they call me on it when I screw up, because it's really important for me to learn. I don't think that I can succeed, and I don't think any of us can succeed unless we're receiving meaningful feedback. It's important to me to emphasize that, yesterday I may have felt terrible as a leader, but today I need to get up, dust myself off, and continue along this journey. Get back in that boat and keep rowing or keep climbing that hill, because as leaders, that resilience is going to be key. especially in difficult times. I also think it's really important that you look for what resonates with you as a leader in terms of leadership strategies. So this is the strategy that resonated with me early on. We had a director who brought strengths-based leadership and the 12 questions to our department. And it has resonated with me as a structure for how I try to lead. When things are going wrong or things are difficult, I can always go back for me to the 12 questions and say, okay, did that employee know what was expected them at work? Did they have all the tools and materials to do what they need to do their work? Did they have the opportunity to do what they do best? Did we hear them? Did their opinions count? So for me, this has been a strategy that's helped ground me in my leadership throughout my career. I find it to be something that is easily utilized when I need to figure out how do I need to move forward on things. This does not have to be the be all end all for everybody, though. There are a bunch of leadership strategies out there, and you may have one that doesn't fit a particular type. But when we're going through difficult times and we're leading through challenging issues, it is good to have strategies. I may be somebody who likes to fly by the seat of my pants, but if we don't have a foundational place to go back to see, am I on track? Am I meeting all of the needs of my staff and my employees? You can get off base and you can end up in a place where you don't mean to end up. So going back to knowing yourself and knowing how you want to lead, look for those strategies that can help ground you so that you're not getting way off track in your leadership style. Because when the pressure's coming from above and below and you're caught in the middle, it can be really easy to flail around and not hold true to yourself and who you are as a leader. And that's when you're the most successful, when you're bringing yourself to the role, when you're understanding what your needs are. Next slide. So I want to talk just a little bit as we go through difficult times about a strategy that is about being more focused on the problem than the personalities. So this is something that one of my former bosses called aim frame versus blame frame. So it's really about when we're going through difficult times, it can be easy to get into this issue of who's to blame. How can I make it go away? I'm going to put that on that person. As leaders, it's our responsibility to take responsibility, right, for whatever may have gone wrong in a situation. I don't know if anybody attended CWDA last year, the conference, but one of the speakers worked in the Obama administration. And the story that she told that really resonated for me on this particular issue was about President Obama. And when the ACA website was going to roll out, he was meeting with the team. And every time at the end of the meeting, he would ask, the software's going to work, right? The software's going to work, right? And everybody assured him, yes, the software's working. It's going to work. It's not a problem. We got it. We're doing it. Well, when the ACA rolled out that first day, the website crashed. Everything crashed. It was just a disaster of a rollout. And here's the man in charge. He's been asking this for over and over and over again. Was it going to work? And instead of, when it didn't work, instead of saying, who's the one to blame, and slamming his fist on the table and just being very angry at finding the person to blame for this problem, instead, he said, what are we going to do to fix it? So you've got the president who could certainly be as angry as anybody, just his signature policy is not working, and instead of getting angry at the person, he's working the problem, right? And so that allows his team to not be fearful. It allows your team, if you're working the problem, not to be fearful. So if something is going wrong, especially in difficult times, everybody already has a little bit of fear about what might happen, and then you throw a problem on top of that. If you are somebody that's looking to solve the problem instead of looking who to blame, you'll build that trust, and people will be innovative. People will come up with ideas that are different, and share those with you instead of being fearful and not being willing to share. Okay, next slide. The other thing that I found throughout my career that was very, very important is creating good relationships. Not just with your direct reports, which is important. Creating relationships is extremely important with your direct reports. You heard that from when you guys were thinking about your best manager, compassion and caring and all of that. But it's also important to have good relationship with your peers and with your bosses and whoever else you might be working with. As you get into more and more difficult times, it's really key to be able to pick up the phone and call your fellow manager or call your supervisor or call a fellow director and say, hey, I have this problem. Can you help? Or, hey, can you help? Can I just talk through this issue with you and I can get a different perspective? If you've built those relationships when times are good, then when times get rough, it's a quicker call and there's more trust already built. So you're not having to do that in the middle of dealing with a problem as well. So just as a reminder, take those opportunities to get to know your peers very well and to get to know your boss and your boss's boss and whoever else you can, and establish those relationships early on as you're building up your career. So that's just a little bit of a reminder. So next slide. So as a manager, not just a leader, but as a manager, somebody that's in charge of people's work, you set the tone for the work environment. You can make it a good environment or you can make it a difficult environment for those people who work for you as your direct reports. So what we know is Gallup has done a lot of research about this and have found that the variance of employees' engagement, their managers account for 76% of that. So whether or not you're engaged, your employees are engaged, has to do directly with the manager, the person that's in charge of the day-to-day. And 70% of the reason why an employee leaves an organization is because of their manager. So managers and supervisors play a key role in how engaged our employees are. And our employees are the most important thing when we're going through difficult times. They're the ones that are out there in the trenches, making sure our clients are safe, making sure they're not missing key information about a situation, making critical decisions. So we want to make sure that our staff are extremely engaged in what they're doing every single day. So we'll go a little bit deeper into this. Next slide. So in order to make sure that your staff are very, very engaged in what they're doing every single day, you should know what your team members' strengths are. You should know what brings them joy, what is difficult for them. Are they somebody that needs a plan? Are they somebody that needs to think things through? Or are they somebody that likes to move on little bits of information? Are they somebody that likes harmony in the situations that they're going to? So genuinely know who your staff members are and care about them. It has to be genuine care. So I once had, when I was the assistant director at one of my roles, I had an employee who, a leader under me who had one of their direct reports have a family emergency. And this leader said, please go leave, take care of your family emergency. I've got you here at work. And then made sure all the things at work were taken care of, but never checked back with that employee to see how the family emergency was. And so the employee was very, very hurt by the fact that the leader hadn't checked in with them about their family issue. Well, from the leader's lens, they were the type of person that if they had a family emergency, they just would like everything at work taken care of so they didn't have to think about it. But they didn't want to share about their family life. So the leader, from the leader's perspective, showed caring. They showed caring by taking care of the stuff at work and not overstepping the boundary of home. So that leader did not know their employee very well. They did not know how to show caring for that particular employee. They never found out that employee, it matters to them that you check in with them about their family emergency. The work stuff will be the work stuff, but check in with them about their family emergency. So in that particular instance, even though the leader was trying to show caring, because they didn't know their employee very well, they ended up doing the opposite and disengaged that employee even more. So it's very important to know and genuinely care by knowing your employees. And that will help get you through these difficult times. If they feel like you're in the trenches with them, they'll be much more likely to be successful. Making sure that you're offering growth and development opportunities for your team members is also a really important part. And then seeking some information back, feedback from your staff to see, is what I'm doing working? What are you worried about? How can I be helpful or provide assistance in areas that you may need? So that will really help with making sure that as you're going through difficult times, you're not forgetting who your employees are as people, as individuals. Okay, next slide. So for some people, it becomes this is very easy to facilitate these conversations and to get to know your employees. But some of us need a little bit of a framework and a little bit of help in knowing how exactly to show that caring. And so here are some tips to really foster that meaningful engagement. You have to be available to your staff. There's nothing more important. If somebody comes into my office, I'm going to put things down, put it aside, or say, if I'm right in the middle of a meeting, I'll get right back to you in 5 minutes and I'll be back with them in 5 minutes. So it's important to be available. If they're fearful, I try to tell my team, I don't want you worrying overnight. If you're fearful about something, you've heard a rumor on the street, you're worried about your job, you're worried about a decision you made, call me. Don't wait till the morning. Don't get a bad night's sleep. Call me. Let me be able to allay that fear, or at least give you correct information. Integrate with your current processes so you're not changing things when things are getting scary unless you absolutely need to. So if there's a lot of fear around something, try to integrate with what you're currently doing. Provide that structure and direction when necessary. Sometimes people just need to vent. Sometimes people just need to let you know what's happening. So, but if they need that structure and direction, make sure that you're ready, willing, and able to do that. Spend more time listening than talking. I think we all know that. We're, I think, all social workers. And so, yes, you got to listen more than you talk and be encouraging. I think being a good listener. And when something goes wrong, we've talked a little bit about this. When something goes wrong, asking for an explanation. What happened here? And being open to those, to the information back. Not being judgmental, but asking for explanation. Make sure that you understand by paraphrasing and making sure that they know that you're going to get back to them. Like if there's something that they need help with, you're going to go back and you're going to circle back with them. So this is just a framework for you all. But I do think it's really important that follow-up sometimes we forget. Once we've moved on, well, I shouldn't say everybody, it's probably just me because I'm that fly by the seat of pants girl. But I used to work with somebody, one of my direct reports, who used to say to us, inspect what you expect. So if you have expectations and you're not looking at them, they're no longer expectations. They're just a wish. So as you're going through your conversations with people and trying to help provide that foundation of stability, make sure you're following up with folks as well. Okay, next slide. So when we're going through difficult times, it's even more important than ever to set clear expectations. People are going to feel uneasy. They're going to feel like things are a little off kilter. And expectations may be constantly changing. I know for me in my current job, there's a lot of changing. Now, my boss is changing, my boss's boss is changing. There's all these different things that are happening in our world right now. So if I don't understand what my job is based on what my boss's expectations are, it gets really, really hard for me to do a good job and know if I'm doing a good job. So you have the ability to be very clear with your staff about what you're expecting with them at this point in time, so that they know that they can move forward. And make sure that when you're setting those goals or those expectations, that you're measuring the right outcomes, that you're not micromanaging every step of the way, but instead looking for the outcome as opposed to the process as you're going through, because people need the ability right now, especially during difficult times, to be innovative, to be creative. And we need to provide some space and some room for that to be an opportunity for them. So it's really, really important that we're looking at what is it that we're really hoping to measure? What is it that we're really hoping to see as success? And asking for feedback along the way is going to be very, very important. Not only for you to give them feedback, but for them to give you feedback when things are getting really tough. Next slide. So, and nobody likes to come to work, especially when times are rough and things, oh, that sounded terrible. I just said nobody likes to come to work. Everybody likes to come to work, but nobody likes to come to work in a place where they aren't being able to use what their strengths are. They're not able to feel good about the job that they're doing every single day. And to do that, you have to be recognized and you have to be able to do what you do best every day. Doesn't mean all day long, but there needs to be those periods of time when you get lost in the work you're doing. I know when I was an APS worker, I got lost in working with the individual client. I loved problem solving. I loved putting resources in. I loved doing all of that. Did I love doing the paperwork when I got back to the office? No, I didn't love that piece of it. But I did need to I had to tell myself, okay, to get into my flow state, I need to have time with clients every day so that when I was going out and coming back, I could, just sort of make myself feel better when I had to go in and put my notes in or do any of the actual paperwork part of it. So as a leader, it's really, really important, especially when times are rough. If you are going home and there's all this noise and stuff happening in the world, there's all this stuff happening at work, with difficult financial times and maybe changes in leadership. If you get that opportunity to do something that makes you happy every day and to feel like you're in that flow state, you're going to be in a much better place to make sure that you're getting the job done, that and you're doing it right. So it's important to give opportunities to do that whenever you're able to do it. Okay, next slide. So this is something that one of my coworkers created that really resonated with me. And so when you're talking about your employees, everybody is different. We usually do this in a room where people can yell out things. So this is it's a little bit different here today. But so we have 3 plants on this slide, and one is a succulent, one is a pothos, which you probably have seen in every office, in every county building, everywhere. And the last one is an African violet. And so what do we know about succulents? Well, succulents are beautiful. They're beautiful in their own way. And in fact, they don't thrive if you give them too much attention. You kind of have to take a succulent and put it in a corner or a part of your yard where they get a ton of sunlight, just a little bit of water. But if you overwater them or you put them in a dark corner, they're going to die. But if they're beautiful and out in the sun and you leave them alone and you just let them do their thing, they'll be beautiful. They'll be full of water. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. A pothos is probably the most forgiving plant there's ever existed on this planet. You can forget about a pothos for 6 months, come back, water it. It'll look all dead, yellow leaves, just very sad plant. But you come back, you water it, you say, yeah, great job, plant. Come on, we can do it. And it'll pop right back up and it'll survive and it'll thrive and the vines will grow. And it is just a fabulous plant to be adaptable. If you overwater it a little bit, it'll take that overwatering and it'll just continue to thrive. So you do what you need to do for this plant and it'll just take it, whatever it is. And then the African violet is gorgeous, most beautiful flowers. The leaves are velvety. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. It also is extremely particular. If you try to water it from the top and you hit a leaf, the leaf is going to die. If you don't put it in a window, that's west facing with just light sun coming in, it'll die. If you got to water it from the bottom, it wants what it wants, and that's it. So I think if we think about our employees, so all of our employees, some of them might be a succulent. They don't want you to bother them. They want to be doing their own thing. They don't need a lot of attention. In fact, the more attention you give them, the worse the performance, the way that they don't like the attention. And so they just want to be left alone. And then you've got your African violets. They're a little bit temperamental of employees. They need their specific attention, but if they get that specific attention, they have these gorgeous flowers. They have these gorgeous things that they do. Innovative, creative, all sorts of things, but they just need to be treated in a certain way. And then we have our employees that are pothos, that, no matter what you do, they're going to be there, they're going to show up to work, and they're going to just love their job. And so when you're working with, especially in difficult times, if you have a cactus or succulent or a African violet, you may have to be a little bit more intentional about how you're interacting with them, the feedback that they're giving you, the feedback you're giving them. But no matter what plant they are, and we can never ask an African violet. Like if we brought an African violet in to our office and we asked them to be a pothos or a succulent, they couldn't change. They wouldn't be able to change because they are an African violet. This is the authentic self that I was talking about. So, but you also wouldn't get those beautiful flowers. You wouldn't get those velvety leaves. And so when you're working with your staff, especially in difficult times, sometimes they may be a little more prickly. They might need a little extra care. But if you do that, if you do it the right way, you're going to get these beautiful flowers. You're going to get this beautiful succulent that's going to be able to give you things that you didn't even know you needed because you treated them in the way that they needed to be treated. Okay. Next slide. And the other important thing, especially as we're going through difficult times, is that that we really look at successes. So in 1992, the University of Wisconsin did a study where they had a bowling league, and they divided the groups into two distinct groups. And they all bowled their game. And at the end of the game, they watched footage of the matches. Footage of the matches. Sorry, footage of the matches. And one of the teams focused on everything that they did wrong. All the things, where could they improve? What are the things that they could improve on? And the other team focused on what they did well. What are the things that they could do more of? And what the study found is that those that were focused on the areas where they were not succeeding, those areas where it was their performance wasn't as good, they did not improve in their performance as much as they did on the group that was focused on their successes and what they did well. So I think as we go through difficult times, we tend to, as leaders, we can get into a situation where we start focusing on what's going wrong, because we're trying so hard to be able to do a good job that we don't want to make those mistakes. We don't want to create more messes. And so to be able to focus on success feels harder. But if we can focus on the areas where we're doing really well, then we're going to learn more, and we're actually going to do better. Our performance will be better altogether. So if I can just put that out there, is focusing in on success as opposed to those areas where we're doing poorly may be a way to help when you're going through difficult times. Okay, so next slide. So as you are going through difficult times, your staff need some help. They have basic needs that we all have. You know, I need these from my boss, and it's important for us as leaders to make sure that we're helping our staff with these 4 basic needs, which are build trust, show compassion, provide stability, and create hope. So the next slide. So the chances of employees being engaged at work if they don't trust their leader is just 1 in 12. But if they do trust their leader, their chance of being engaged is 1 in 2. It's a huge difference for being engaged. For your employees to be engaged. It is the essential building blocks of how we need to lead our teams. It takes just a fraction of a moment to lose trust, and a really long time to build it. I think the important things when you're building trust is to try to be as transparent as possible. Sometimes we can't always share everything, but we can share what we can. To admit when we make mistakes, because we all are going to make mistakes, and to make sure that that we're doing the daily work of listening and hearing feedback so that we can improve and be better. If we have trust, it not only helps, it helps in so many areas, but it also speeds things up. If I have to pick up the phone and call one of my colleagues and I have a relationship and I built trust with them, instead of me having to explain myself and all of the issues and why the problem is happening, it takes just a fraction of a second for them to say, yes, okay, we'll do that, or how can I help? And so when you're building that trust with your employees, it's the same thing. It takes just a few minutes for you to then just say, please, let's move forward with this. So trust is one of those basic building blocks, and that we need to establish with our staff, with our peers, and with our supervisors and bosses. Next slide. So we've talked a little bit about this. I shared the story about the leader who, to the employee didn't feel like they cared about them because they weren't showing care in the way that the employee had hoped for them to care. So we need to make sure as leaders that we're focusing on our employees as people first, that they have life outside of work, right? Their well-being is really, really important. I think it's also very important, and I don't think that we as leaders often do this, but it's important to demonstrate your own self-compassion. So it's very easy for us to step away and feel, I don't know, the number of times in a day that I feel like, oh, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said it in that way, or I should have done this or that. You know, you shit all over yourself. If you can show and demonstrate compassion for yourself, it not only helps build that compassion with your staff, but it gives you a break. You as a leader need that break as well, because you're not going to be perfect. It's a journey, remember, it's a really long journey. And all we can do, I think it was Simon Sinek that said, there is no perfect leader. The hope is just, or the goal is just to be better today than you were yesterday. And so working towards that and showing yourself compassion is also very key when you're leading through difficult times, because the pressure is on you as a leader, and it can be overwhelming at times. And so being compassionate with yourself, having a best friend at work, I know that sounds weird, but having somebody that you can vent to and complain to and get it all out, that is harder and harder in this virtual world, I think, because we don't have the opportunities we used to have to build those friendships and those relationships. I noticed that my husband is the full-time at home with his job. He's a software engineer, and at the end of the day, he tries to share with me what goes on at his work and all the personalities and all the issues. And I try really hard to listen and to understand and to show compassion for him. But I have no idea what he does as a software engineer. And I don't know the people. I can't understand, really, truly what he's going through. But I have friends at work that those couple of people that I can call and say, oh, I'm so frustrated, or this went really, really wrong. And they understand in a way that I can't for my husband. And so it's really important in your compassion for yourself that you have those people you can go to, those trusted few people to take care of yourself and to just get it all out, to just be able to share it in a safe, trusted manner, somebody that's got your back. And so I highly encourage you to find those people or that person that you can have those talks with, and they can talk with you. It lessens the load when you can share it. Okay, next slide. We're almost done. The other thing is leaders need to provide stability. It's really hard for people if they come into the office. I remember I worked with one of my friends who had a boss who every time they came in, it was like, oh, are they going to be in a good mood or a bad mood? Do I need to hide today in my office, or is it going to be a good day and I'm going to get some good feedback? So when leaders are able to provide stability, it means that people are coming into the office every single day and they know that the basic core foundation is not going to change. That especially in a time of crisis, that what we're doing on an everyday basis is not going to change. We're going to be okay. You're going to come in and the environment is going to be okay. Everything is fine. That reassurance that your core values are stable, that there's stability here, is very, very important. And then the resilience. As a leader, resilience is key. Figuring out, and that's why I think a best friend at work helps, how you take care of yourself outside of work, how you, whatever it is that you do to make sure that you have that good work-life balance, so that when you come into the office, you're able to be resilient. You're able to pick yourself back up when you've had a bad day, come back in the next day and say, okay, let's get at it. That resilience as a leader is going to help you, particularly in times of crisis, times of difficulty, And so I strongly encourage you to look for those ways to be resilient. And then finally, the last one is to create, next slide, sorry. The last one is to create hope. Nope, sorry, go back, create hope. Sorry, Sierra. um, so, oh, we're going back and forth. It's okay. It's just a picture of a plant. So I think it's really important, particularly when we are going through times of crisis, that we as leaders, not as managers, provide that vision and that hope for the future. That when things are hard today, tomorrow will be better. And if not tomorrow, then the day after. That we together as a team are going to get through this, and to create that hope so that they don't feel like they're just coming in and dredging through each and every day with no change coming, nothing good happening in the future. You provide that vision. You provide that ability to see past what's going on today into the future, and provide them with that understanding that there is going to be a better day. I appreciate, with that, I just want to say I appreciate your time today. Dawn, I don't know if we have time for any questions.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got lots of time.
Okay.
But I don't want to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say I really appreciate spending time with everybody today, but
Yes. Yeah. So we'll shift into, I've got some questions for Jennifer, just kind of uh, around some of the things that you talked about, and then we'll open it up to the group for questions as well. So start thinking about your questions. We might be wanting some feedback for you in this area too. And we have time built in for a break, so we can either take that now or we can take it in a little bit. What's your preference, Jennifer?
I'm fine to keep going now if you'd like.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about around the area of creating hope, how are you doing that with your team right now? As you mentioned, and as we're all feeling and experiencing, there's so much worry, there's so much uncertainty, there are so many things changing. Sometimes it feels like every day there's some other change and we're like, but it's not clear and I'm not really sure what's happening here. What are we going to do? So can you talk about what you're doing around creating hope for your team?
Well, what I'm trying to do, hopefully succeeding most days, and maybe not as successful on other days, but really for me, sharing sharing my history of having gone through this and having seen it, having gone through times where it was it was very difficult to come to work and to see the impact to our staff, but then to see the other side of it, like, during 2008, 2009, and we had to downsize quite a bit. But look at us today. We are bigger and better than we've ever been, with the best team of manager leaders that this county has ever seen in adult protective services. Sorry, we have the best ones. I just have to say that out loud. I'm teasing. I'm sure you're all fabulous, but I just have to be a happy mom, a proud mom a little bit. So, I think when we look at the past and see that change continues to happen, and to be willing to share what we've seen in the past, be transparent with what we know for today, but then also plan for the future. Don't just stop at what's happening today, but what are those things that we can dream of for when it's time to hit the gas again? What does that look like? Where can we get? And it's hard to do when there's already not enough time in the day. So with my direct reports, we talk about that a lot. Like, okay, this is a back burner, but for right now, until we can find the funding, whether it's through better times in the future or through a grant or through other things, let's not let go of that. Let's continue to look and dream of what that would be even if we can't do it today. So I think that's what I try to do, and to try to create that hope with our team.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I was writing that down as I was listening to you about that balance of um, needing to be responsive to what's happening in front of us. And also, like, there will still be a future. It's still important in
Yeah.
terms of hope and excitement, even though like I'm not really feeling it so much right now, there will be a time. And so to still have that opportunity to dream and how can we make this better? What would we want to try? Because especially, when you've been working for, it doing this work for long enough, you've seen the pendulum swing
Yes.
both ways. So you do genuinely, truly know that it's hard now. It won't be forever though.
Yeah. I think about when I was a kid, going to school every day was like, ugh. But I dream, we all had a dream, whether it's summer vacation or you have that hope for the future. And so if we aren't dreaming and hoping, then it just feels like drudgery every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I want to go back. You were talking about showing compassion, and as you specifically about as a leader demonstrating self-compassion. And as you were talking, it brought up a memory for me. It can be hard as a leader to think about how would I do that, or I know for me, I had a situation where I'm like, I don't want to draw, like this is really happening for me, but I don't want to draw attention to myself. Like I'm here to support. And I remember when I was with the county and you were my supervisor, I had a situation with a family member having a serious medical crisis. And I was shaken by it, of course. And and so I was talking to you about this is happening. It's impacting me. I'm going to be needing to take some time off. But I don't know if I should talk to my team or how much I should talk to them. I'm not trying to like make work about me. But this is happening. And you really helped me navigate that and, supported me and yeah, talk to your team. Like this is how you're showing up right now. They notice a difference. So to the extent that you're comfortable, you can share that with them and just so that they know what's happening and you're going to be out and you're maybe not like full brain power right now. You have this other thing going on. And I've taken that with me all the way through to today in that guidance about, people again, like it's impacting how I'm showing up. I'm still trying to be in support of my team, but also like this is how it is for me right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's that
and
transparency too, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it shows compassion for yourself, but also helps to build trust, that you trust your team enough to be vulnerable with them, to the extent that you're comfortable. But also, hey, yeah, if you're noticing me different, usually I'm very stable as a leader, and this is what you can expect. But these next few months might be a little different. So yeah, I always admired that you were willing to do that, Dawn. That's a really good leadership.
And then I saw there was a question here in your notes, and I was also hearing you about you get energized by the interactivity and was wondering if that is something that you wanted to open up to the group here in the chat. If there are ways that you all show compassion to yourself, to your team, if you have any ideas or thoughts on that, you can feel free to pop that in the chat and we can.
Yeah, I would love that. The Zoom not being able to ask the questions like what is the succulent remind you of, or African violet, is really hard for me not to have that interaction. So I'd love to hear how people are showing compassion, or any of the things that we've talked about today. How you show up to build trust, or stability for your team in difficult times. Because I don't have all the answers. You all on this call, just taking the time to learn, you're busy. So to take the time and space to to try and invest in yourself as a leader by listening to other leaders, that's pretty remarkable, and in and of itself says to me that people on this call are probably pretty remarkable leaders themselves. So love to hear if anybody has any feedback on that.
So feel free to share in the chat what you kind of what comes to mind for you in terms of things that you're practicing or ideas that are coming up for you about what you'd want to try around showing compassion to yourself and your team, what you're doing to show stability, what you're doing to create hope. Any thoughts on that? I know this is a good group. I know you're having some
Yeah.
thoughts.
If I could just do it by talking,
Yeah.
because I don't type that fast. So
Yes,
I
yes.
think a lot of what you're talking about is the difference between cultivating joy versus happiness.
Mm,
Because joy is an internal state of being where you're looking for your purpose, you're looking for meaningful connections, and it's
mm,
something that doesn't change during difficult times, whereas happiness is very much based on the external things coming at us every day.
yeah.
So I think this idea of helping your staff do that self-care, remember the purpose of why we're here, even though it's really hard right now. Cultivating those kinds of conversations, um, and that it can also be what helps to develop a sense of psychological safety within your
Mm,
organization, which is
yeah.
another big piece
Yes.
of feeling contentment in
Yeah.
the midst of a storm. So I
Yes.
think that's really what we're talking about is the difference between all these things that are coming at us, and that never changes. It hasn't changed for
That's right.
the 35 years that I've been at DSS.
Yes.
So that is not going to change. But what can change is how do we remember our purpose during these difficult times? And how do we cultivate positive relationships
Yes.
during difficult times? It-
Absolutely. I love that, Elise. I love that. I love that idea of joy versus happiness. You're right, because it is very internal. Sometimes the outside things do affect, our equilibrium a little bit, and so our happiness
Mhm.
goes away. But if we can cultivate that inner understanding of what brings us joy,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's really key. Really key. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other thoughts from the group around how you're creating hope, how you're providing stability, how you're showing compassion? Anything you want to share in the chat, or feel free to come off mute and share?
Don, there's a question in the chat about addressing strategies for fostering leadership among supervisors who bring different levels of experience and diverse perspectives to the program or on the program. How do you work toward building consensus in that environment? So not just a top-down approach from management.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent question. And I think a lot of it has to do with listening and creating those opportunities for listening. It is when we have peers that are struggling either with each other or with their direct leader, it can be very destabilizing to the whole group. So, and I think also um, the more veteran leaders, having done things for a long time and seen things for where they, from the perspective of we've tried all these things over time, and then the people that come in with energy and are like, let's do this way. Um, I think honoring both sides of that by doing a lot of listening and talking through what can we live with as opposed to what is it that we are definitely going to do. And I think it's important to have we are I think we all as leaders don't want to do the top down. I think we've learned that that doesn't work, and it's much better if there is the consensus between the managers. It's hard to build if there isn't trust. It's hard to build if there isn't a sense of healthy debate and conflict. Um, One of the books that I've read over the years, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, is really important when you're having difficulties with distrust or difficulty with building that consensus. And maybe some voices in the room not hearing the full breadth of everybody in the room. One of my favorite stories from that book is is that there was when the 49ers were looking, this is back in the early 80s, when they were looking for a new, I think it was in this book, or I don't know where I heard it, but they were looking for a new quarterback. And everybody in the room was talking about, I can't remember who, this really, really good college player, and they were going to draft this college player, and he was, it's just a done deal. Of course we're going to draft him. We've got the first round, we're going to draft him. And there was one lone voice in the corner that said, hey, have you heard about this kid? Oh, dang it, I just forgot his name. I was going to call him Dan Marino, and that's not right. The really good quarterback from the Niners back in the 80s. And that's what comes with age, that forgetfulness. And everybody in the room said, no, not always. I'm teasing about the forgetfulness. Joe Montana, thank you. That was going to bother me. Joe Montana. It was like sitting right there. And so the one in the corner said, have you heard about this kid, Joe Montana? And I think his stats are really good and we should look at him. And yes, sorry, my Bay Area people, that I forgot Joe Montana's name. So the one lone voice in the corner being willing to speak up and go against the grain and say, hey, have you thought about this kid? That changed the trajectory of the Niners probably for those years, because he was such a great quarterback and led that team. But what that group of people in that room had was psychological safety through building trust, through hearing feedback. Some real good, strong Joe Montana fans in the comments, through building trust, through that psychological safety, through being okay to have healthy conflict. That's how you build the understanding and the respect for the different ideas, different levels, and diverse perspectives that can come in a room when there's difficulty. And that doesn't change overnight. That takes a lot of work to provide those opportunities for trust building. I also don't think it works in a virtual environment always. I think you have to get in a room to build that trust. You can't see body language, and facial expressions are difficult. So for me, it really feels like there is something to be said for being in a room on a regular basis, if you're able to be, in order to really build that trust and that psychological safety. I don't know if that answered the question, but it's really got to be the team doing it together, and having those hard conversations together, if they're able to do it.
Thanks, Jennifer. I have another question for you. And if you all have questions, please continue to put them in the chat and we'll just kind of go through that way. Can you talk about, I heard you talking about strengths, the importance of knowing your team's strengths. How do you leverage your team's strengths? Do you have any examples or things that are going on right now where you see yourself really leveraging your team's strengths?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm constantly looking for opportunities for people to leverage their strengths. So like I said, I'm a fly by the seat of the pants kind of girl. I'm not somebody that is going to be overly prepared, but my job requires me to be overly prepared sometimes. And it requires planning and strategic goals and all of that kind of stuff. So we have some of our deputy directors here who are really, really good at making sure that we're step by step, making sure that we are not missing things, making sure that if we have a meeting coming up, there's an agenda or there's the thoughtful questions being called out. We're not just getting in the room and and just going by what we're thinking at the time, to make sure that we're not missing things. And I think what's key in that is that I may drive them crazy sometimes, they may drive me crazy sometimes, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, we embrace and understand that we would not be a successful team if we didn't have everybody bringing their strengths around the table. So if if I were just to get upset because somebody's, planning when I didn't need to plan, and not recognize, dang it, we would have missed all of this if I hadn't embraced the fact that they like to do these things. Or if, I'm thinking about when I oversaw testing and vaccine operations. That was a time when if we didn't if we cast people wrong, we would not have been successful. So it was really important to me to make sure that each person coming in understood that they needed to bring their strengths. So we had some people that were really good with data. Well, we needed to understand that that may not have been their real life job. That may not have been the job that they did in their everyday life. We had occupational physical therapists. That was their real life job. They loved data. They loved learning data themselves. They taught themselves how to do Power BI, all of these things. And so we embraced that. We didn't just say, okay, well, you're medical personnel, you need to go here. And so on an everyday basis, looking at what is it that you bring to the table. When I was a new worker, I thought in order to be successful, I had to volunteer for everything. And now, and I was terrible at a lot of things. I'm not great at spreadsheets and Excel and all that kind of stuff. And so, but I would volunteer every time because I thought that's what a good employee was. And then what I've learned through my journey is that no, I volunteer my strengths every time. What am I good at? What will I bring value with? And what won't I? And when I'm not going to bring the value, I hope and expect anybody on my team to volunteer their strengths because they're really good at Excel, or they're really good at writing a board letter, or they're really good at, so my expectation is I'll volunteer my strengths. Please volunteer yours when the time is needed. And that makes us a well-rounded team. I don't have to be well-rounded as a person, but we need a well-rounded team.
And then I heard you in talking about this and earlier in your presentation also talking about self-awareness and being aware of yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you need to manage around those things. Can you talk about how you use self-awareness as a leader?
Yeah, well, and I think there's two parts to that. One is admitting when you have a weakness or a basement or an area that you're not so good at, and talking it through with my direct reports and being vulnerable about it, because I think for them to share back what they maybe are not the best at, they need to hear that you're okay with sharing what you're not the best at. And then I think, and so that to me, some of that self-awareness is really about sharing who you are with others. But I think the bigger key is sometimes we have blind spots. Sometimes, we try our hardest to be self-aware, or maybe we're on the beginning of a journey of an area. And so for me, it's to really lower my ego as much as possible, and listen to feedback. It's hard. It's really hard when you're dealing with something that you're like, oh no, that's not me, or that's not what I intended, or that, all of those kinds of things. Um, but to listen and to be open, and to take the feedback from those that you trust and that you respect, because sometimes feedback is just noise. It's not real. But for those people that you respect and you trust, to hear the feedback, even when it's hard, that helps with your self-awareness, I think, more than anything. And I've learned from my direct reports more than I've ever learned from my bosses in terms of self-awareness. So if you as leaders get a chance to really understand or really have the opportunity to get feedback from your direct reports, I say embrace it, do as much as you can, and learn from what they see from you as a leader, because that has been the most impactful for me as a leader, is hearing that my intention doesn't always land, and I need to figure out a different way, and that helps me to be self-aware.
Thanks, Jennifer. And hi, Amy. I see you got your hand up.
Hi, Dawn. Good morning. Thank you for presentation, Jennifer. I know all of us, I share this message with everybody who's here from San Diego. We feel really lucky to have you as a director, and the approach that you bring to leadership has been palpable in our county. So, but I feel at times there it feels like often what we're measuring, our measurables are around not strengths. Sometimes what folks are most, especially coming from a social work background, maybe, some of the things that we're most strong at, or our workers are most strong at, or our leaders are most strong at, are those soft skills, right? And it's the team building, and it's those things. And those aren't things that show up on a stat sheet or measurables, right? So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about keeping up the morale and the positivity when it feels like we're often measuring people by things that are the most draining parts of their job, and how we keep supporting them and keep valuing what they are bringing and their strengths, knowing that the end all be all often is, the really challenging kind of numbers crunching measurables that we do.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Amy. And thank you for being here this morning. I get the pleasure of working with some incredible leaders who I've learned a lot from here in San Diego. It is the thing that is the hardest, what you just brought up, because measuring outcomes, nobody's good at that. For so many, in so many of my jobs, we've been like, okay, yes, we can hit that data, but does the data really tell us what the outcomes are? And what's important are those outcomes. They're just so dang hard to measure. And whether it's an employee, or are we meeting our deliverables for the state? Like I said, I loved being out with clients, hated doing my paperwork when I came back to the office. So if you looked at me, I luckily had a strengths-based leader early on in my career who just did it. It came naturally to her. And she saw my innate ability to work with people and be really, really good. And helped me to work around my weaknesses, and just build on my strengths. I don't have a magic wand for measuring those outcomes because it's so difficult. I think that to me is why we build those one-to-one relationships with our staff, so that when we are trying to build morale and to build hope, we can say, I see you. Like, Amy, I know you are an incredible strengths leader. You are a strengths-based leader. That's what you bring to the table. I see you. I know it. And to build and encourage on that, even when the rest of the day-to-day, because my boss, when I was a social worker, didn't say, oh, you don't have to do the paperwork, right? She still made me do that part of my job because it's an integral part of what we do. But she knew that it was not my bliss. So finding ways to make it a little bit better for me or easier, or I'm the type of person that needs deadlines. So she would set artificial deadlines for me. And that let me be seen as a person. And I think when we can't measure outcomes, then we need to make sure that we're seeing the individual person, because we still do need to hold people accountable. Like, I needed to be held accountable if I wasn't getting my paperwork done on time. Not saying that I ever did that, but I'm just saying if I did, then I needed to be held accountable for that because it's an important part of the job. But as a supervisor, you can help to see the individual and help them to do the best that they can do within those parameters, whatever it is that they need to help feel like they're still doing a good job, even if they're not perfect at their job. So seeing them as individuals is really important. And if there are ways that anybody can think of to measure those outcomes in a way that's meaningful, I am all ears for that, because the bottom line isn't seeing necessarily, one of the measures is seeing clients within 10 days, but was that a meaningful interaction, or was it just a quickie drive-by? That difference, it makes a difference to the individual client instead of, and that outcome isn't measured always. So I appreciate that question, Amy. I wish I had a magic wand that could figure out those outcomes, but that is maybe SDSU, Don, can figure that out for us. How do we measure those outcomes rather than just the data points?
Jennifer. Hi, Gina.
Hello. Sorry, I put my hand down. I my husband gets mad at me because I go off in too many directions. So I apologize in advance because I have so many comments and things to say. I loved the presentation. I wish you could come to one of our leadership meetings. I don't know if you do like this presentation again. I feel like I come and I get so excited and I'm just one person. I'm from Orange County and I love my county, but we are struggling and we've had a lot of changes. I think one of the things like what Amy just said, the outcomes and the measurables, we're really focused on, I think we have LEAPS. We're still fairly new to the LEAPS program, and it's all about data and how we, input our stuff. And we're kind of, I feel like we're a little more focused on the punitive aspects of, like you said, like there's people that go out and see the clients and they have these meaningful interactions and they're awesome senior social workers, but maybe they're a little bit behind on their paperwork. And of course, we're trying to hold them accountable, but I don't know, we're off. Something's off. And so I've just really appreciated this reminder because I keep feeling like, gosh, morale's not great, and I know there's just a lot of stuff going on, in the world, the country, the state, the whole thing. So it's a combination of things, but it's good reminders. I took a lot of notes, but I don't know.
Yeah, Gina, I hear you. I mean, I think just generally speaking, the world is just in a rough spot right now, and everybody brings that with them when they come to work, and because it's just heavy. Things feel heavy right now. So you're already fighting a little bit of an uphill battle to make work a great place for people to be as a leader. Yeah, I feel and hear everything you're saying because it's hard when we're measuring things that feel like we're punching numbers, and yet we know that if they don't write their notes, it's not good either. So it's that huge balance and trying to figure out how do we support those that do such an amazing job in certain areas. Because I certainly don't think a social worker that does a bunch of drive-bys and gets their notes in all the time, that's not what we're looking for either, just because they might look great on paper. We want to make sure that they're having those meaningful interactions with clients and making sure they're safe and they have the best that they can do. So you stayed on, you did great, Gina. I'm sorry. I wish I had a magic wand to help with that, but I think you're calling out what a lot of people are feeling right now. There's a lot of heaviness.
Well, I think it helps to, and again, this is, I love my county, I love my
Oh, yeah,
leaders. I'm
100%.
not bashing, but
Yeah,
it helps
right.
when you have leaders like at your level that have actually done APS because APS is so unique and trying to explain it to new people coming in that have been at children's their whole life. They don't quite, it takes a while. It took me a while to understand. I've been at APS like over 20 years and every day I feel like I learned something new. And that's what keeps me because it's so unique. And I'm glad that you guys have that.
Yeah. I've done both I haven't worked in the field in child welfare, but my mom did. So I feel like I got it through osmosis, which is how I landed in APS and just found I loved it so very, very much. I think it's a very unique program. It's like in the baby stages of just still learning all the things that we need to do for older adults and people with disabilities or dependent adults, and that we don't have the decades and decades, but we know that our population is growing, and certainly everything's getting so much more sophisticated that I think the future for APS is we're just barely touching the surface of all the things that we're going to be required to do and understand as APS workers. So it's definitely exciting to be just in the beginning of it all because it is changing and so new. Even if the law is 26 years old now, that still is very new comparison to a lot of other programs. So try to hold on to that love and see if you can spread that even when the morale is a little bit rough. So, yeah, but they'll feed off your energy. They'll feed off your energy.
I try.
I know. No, it's hard.
Thank you for lifting that up,
Mhm.
Gina, and for your response, Jennifer. I've got another question in my pocket, but I want to see any questions from the group here. Anybody that wants to come off mute or pop a question in the chat. I see some thinking faces. All right, I'm going to jump in, and if you come up with a question, just raise your hand or put it into the chat. I wanted to go back to aim frame versus blame frame. That can be a tough one, like easy to say, hard to do, especially when sometimes organizations want the easy fix, like who did this? That person's responsible, and then that takes care of the problem. Can you talk about what it looks like? How do you navigate aim frame versus blame frame?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always thought of it as the blame lands on my shoulders, right? If something goes wrong um, and others looking in are wanting to know who to blame, my answer is always me. I lead this team. This anything that we have done, that's the way it should be. When you lead a team, you need to make sure that the mistakes that may happen are not on them. Maybe they didn't have all the information. Maybe there was a glitch somewhere that wasn't. They didn't have the tools to do their job. They didn't understand their expectations. All of those things need to come into play. And then as an organization, we need to be taking a look at where did the breakdown happen? Did it happen in expectations? Because the goal is not to blame, but to avoid having something similar happen in the future. And it's not like, oh, this person's to blame, but it is like, here's the problem. So around this problem, what created it? Is it the expectations that weren't set? Is it that they didn't have the resources they needed? There wasn't enough time. And so dissecting that internally, getting feedback from all the team members that played a part in it. We did a lot of that during COVID, where we would look at if a particular testing site was having a difficult time with lines or things like that. It wasn't, oh, the manager of the site's to blame. It is, okay, if the media is looking in, that's on me. That's not on the team. Okay, team, now here's the problem. The lines are too long. Was there a cause for that? Is it, do we need to open another site someplace else close by? Do we need new technology? Um, do we need more training? Okay, what is the issue? I am not going to be able to do that without the help of the team that's there on site, or the team that knows the most. So really making it safe for them to feel like, no, you're not coming into this for me to say you did wrong, or their boss to say you did wrong. It's to say, what are those issues holding you up, and to explore the issues as opposed to the individual where the issues that may have been in charge of whatever the issue was, or whoever it might be that somebody might look to blame. So I think for me as leader, it's important that the team knows that you ultimately are on their side. You're ultimately working to solve the problem. Now, if there is, every once in a while, there might be something that needs to be held accountable. Somebody that, if there is a blatant issue, but that's on the back burner. That's not something that we're going to be talking about when we're looking at the issue as a whole. If somebody blatantly didn't show up, or did something super duper wrong, then we'll address that. But the reality is for the whole team to be looking at whatever the problem or the issue was. And so I found that to be very helpful to resolve issues, not just to sweep them under the carpet. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And that makes me think also about we had done a series on QA. We'd had folks from Washington present to us, and we had some of our county folks present as well. And that was one of the themes was about setting the foundation that for QA, it's not about you're to blame or you're bad. You're not doing, you're not doing a good enough job. It's about really looking at like what are the system's issues? Is the policy not clear? Is this really just not understood widely? Does staff not have the resources, the tools that they need? So I like the way that it really aligns us with that kind of that leadership perspective.
Yeah. It's great. I love looking at QA that way. I love QA because I love solving systems problems because there's so many of them. Why make people's jobs harder if we can solve whatever that issue is to make life easier? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes the technology is not our friend. Maybe that might be an issue. But yeah, I love being able to move obstacles for our teams to be able to have more space and time to do the work they love.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Again, you can raise a hand, you can put your question or comment in the chat. Anything else in these last couple of minutes? I'm gonna give it a minute for people that are maybe thinking like, ooh, do I want to ask? I'm not really sure. All right, I don't
And this
see
is a
anything.
safe space, right, Dawn? It's a safe space.
That's right. That's right. All right.
Okay.
Well, with that, I want to really, oh, was someone going to say no? Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been great. I have learned so much. I'm seeing in the chat people just really appreciating this topic, especially right now. So thank you so much for first sharing your time with us and your wisdom and your experience. We really appreciate it. And with that, you are welcome to sign off.
Thank you, Dawn. And just if anybody needs any that needs anything, I'm always available. Happy to be available to anybody that wants to just chat. My information is on the PowerPoint. So thank you all for your time this morning. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Jennifer. And with that, we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break. So please come back at 10:54, and then we'll come back for breakout groups. So I'll see you in 5.